Welcome to Greenhouse Grower to Grower, the podcast where we talk to growers from across the greenhouse industry about market trends, innovation, their biggest challenges and opportunities, and more. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. During Cultivate 25, Greenhouse Grower presented its Head Grower of the Year award to Brad Meyer of Bachman's and its Operation of the Year award to Hampshire Farms in Illinois. This episode features highlights of interviews with Meyer and with Fred Wacker at Hampshire Farms, both of which were featured in Greenhouse Grower cover stories in the fall. In this first interview, you can learn about Brad Meyer's unusual path to becoming head grower at Bachman's, how he works with his team, and more. I want to talk first about your current role and responsibilities at Bachman's, and then how you initially joined the company based on your previous experience.
Okay. Well, I first started with them in 2014, I believe.
Okay.
What got me to Bachman's to start with is I worked in drywall for 30 years.
Wow. Okay.
And a lot of people didn't know that. They're kind of surprised about that. But during the housing crash, I had to find a new job because my boss ended up closing the doors.
Okay.
So I went and worked for Davy Tree for a year and a half. And in that time, there was an opening for an assistant grower at Bachman's.
Okay.
And I applied for it. The first year, they did not hire me because I didn't have an education, a hort background.
Mm.
So I kept working for Davy Tree, and then the job came up again. And I called them and said, I'm still interested. I would like to look into this further. And they called me in for another interview, and I was offered the job.
Okay.
So I started as an assistant grower in 2014. And then I moved up to grower when my grower retired.
Okay.
And then after that, Eric moved me up into the lead grower, to kind of help the younger people learn stuff like that. So,
Okay. And this is where I might jump around a little bit. One of the things it really interests me there from what you were saying is, typically I have these conversations and somebody's, got a degree in horticulture and they've worked for various growing operations over the years. In your case, this is obviously a different story. So,
I actually have an egg business degree is what
Okay. So you do have at least some of that in your background then. Okay.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I grew up on a farm for 30 years too. So
Okay.
we raised turkeys and hogs. And
Okay.
so
So you at least had some of that background coming into everything. So that's
yeah.
nice.
And when I went to go to junior college, well, this may sound silly, but one reason I went is because I wanted to play 2 more years of football. So,
Nothing wrong with that.
but they only offered farm operations and ag business. And I figured, well, I've been on the farm working all these years. I kind of have that down. I'll go a different direction and try to tie the two together because I had planned on being a farmer with my dad.
Okay.
But we were a small farm. We only had 250 acres and we raised like 28,000 turkeys and 1,200 hogs a year. But that wasn't really enough for 2 people, to make a living off of.
Yeah.
And I was doing drywall part-time while I was going to college. And when I graduated, I was offered a job to run a turkey hatchery for half what I was making doing drywall. And it was basically working 7 days a week. And so I just decided to keep on with the drywall.
Okay. All right. I am curious. So, I mean, in I'll say relatively short amount of time that you've had in the industry then.
Yeah, I didn't start till I was 55.
Yeah. So,
That was the scariest part of my whole life, I think, because I thought it's going to hire a 55-year-old guy.
well, so like once you got that role, then how did you learn about the industry? I mean, what was it people that you worked with, or just that's got to be a big crash course in education really quick, I would think.
Oh, it was because I was only there a month and they put me on weekends. And on weekends, there's only 2 of us there to take care of the 3 greenhouses. So it was a crash course.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was kind of surprised, but no, the grower I worked with first, Jean, she was very good. I picked her brain. I wrote down everything, because back then we used a lot more different fertilizers on different crops than we do now. I've kind of toned it back to where we can just have a few and still get the same results with the additives that we were using that I've trialed. And that seemed to work out really well. You know, she was very helpful. She was very hesitant when I started because when she found out I was a drywaller, she's like, "Well, this isn't ever going to work." But then David Lyon, and I don't know if you've know him at all, but he
Mm,
used to run a great big operation down in Texas.
okay.
And he moved back. He kind of walked away from that and came back to the cities. And he was actually an assistant grower also. I don't think they really knew what he, all the experience he had had.
Right.
But I worked side by side with him a lot, and I picked his brain so much. And
Wow.
he called me a sponge. And so I have notes everywhere written down and stuff. But no, and then I just, go on webinars and stuff and read magazines. And so I feel that that people can learn a lot just by working experience, not just books.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know people that are book smart, but I'm not one of those people. I learn more by hands-on stuff. So
Well, and I think in an industry like this, I think that's sometimes the best way to learn too, is you get out there and, especially when you hit, the peak of spring season and, there's no better way, I think, to be right in the middle of everything and you
yeah,
just
because
absorb as much as you can.
it was in the heat of the season. It was right in May, basically when went on weekends for the first time myself.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
could remember one of the older growers said, "So you're working this weekend?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "You're so screwed." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "The same thing I've been doing for the last month. I'm just going to come in and start watering
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's what we do on every day." So, but no, I really enjoy my job. I was glad that the Bachmans took a chance on me when they
Good. Good.
joined their team because I just talked to Susie yesterday and stuff too. So she comes down to the greenhouse quite often. So
Okay. That was actually gonna be my next question for you is, I mean, so like what do you like best about your job right now? And I guess conversely to that, what are some of the challenges that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis?
well, I mainly spend most of my time in the plastic house, which is the oldest house we have.
Okay.
I mean, it was built in the early 70s. So the ventilation isn't the best, but I always seem to get the problem child plants in there.
Okay.
And dahlias are always a challenge for mildew.
Okay.
And so I keep trying new things all the time. This year I had it dialed down pretty good because I started mixing some older chemistries within some of the newer chemistries, and
Sure.
it seemed to work pretty well. So,
Okay. Okay.
like I said, a lot of things by trial and error is what I've learned too.
Yeah. Well, and what you're talking about there was kind of one of the other things I wanted to talk about was I was going through before we joined the call here and earlier in the process, we received quite a few nominations on your behalf, and some of the comments that we saw had referenced the IPM program that you developed there. So I kind of want to learn, how especially with not having, a lot of background prior to that, how you work to kind of put that program together and where it stands today in terms of how you deal with pest and disease pressure in the greenhouse.
Well, actually, my supervisor is the one that said maybe we should try beneficials. So
Okay.
that's how that whole thing got started. But we decided to go all in on it, and I will say the first year and a half was a big struggle because we had dirt floors, wood benches, a lot of places for bugs to hide.
Sure.
And it was definitely a challenge, but if anybody wants to get into it, I would say you have to have a company behind you.
Okay.
Because we teamed up with Copert and Heidi was our person that we went to. And I just met with her yesterday again. She was down because there's a new lady that's going to take over our territory, and she's got a new role that she's going to go to with Copert. But she was great, and I still call her a lot, even, about little things, but I know we had a mealybug problem, and we got stuff mealybugs in on Marantha,
Sure.
and we both it took us like a week or more to figure out a chemistry of 3 with 4 different applications of sprays, which we use. So I sprayed them 4 different times a week apart, and we
Okay.
finally cleaned them up, but it was definitely a struggle with that. But it's not easy to get when you have all that old stuff, but when we remodeled, we got rid of all the wood benches, which really helped. And we tore that one of the greenhouses down. So now that's all outside growing for mums, which I have over 20,000 mums outside on that pad right now.
Okay.
So, but that was the main thing. We had to basically start over because we basically went in the chemical room and got rid of everything
Hmm.
because everything would kill all the beneficials that we were going to be putting out.
Yeah.
So then I had to, the BFG people were great. My salesmen that I've had 3 different ones now. They're all great. I've worked with them closely. They've suggested products. I use a lot of biologicals, too, and other chemistries that are safer, but not, well, no, none of them are completely 100% safe.
Right.
I mean, you're going to lose probably 10 or 20% on some of the stuff we have to spray.
Okay. Okay.
Because if we have to do a cleanup spray, there's some of the chemicals we use that we have to wait 14 days before we can reapply the
Mhm.
beneficials.
Sure.
So, and we get shipments every week that come in that we put out in the greenhouse. So we're continuously putting them out every week.
Okay.
But I was very skeptical the first year because we had poinsettias and that was always a problem with whitefly. I
Mm.
was really worried, but I would say that was probably one of the best years we had against whitefly when we
Oh,
were.
nice.
So
Okay.
it does work. I mean, but like I said, you need somebody behind you to back you up because it can be frustrating.
Sure. Sure. Well, and I know, Bachman is one of those companies that not only do they have the growing part of the operation, but they've also got, a strong connection to consumers through the retail side of things. Do you get involved in anything in terms of, you know, working with the garden center to educate consumers about, best management practices and IPM strategies for controlling pests?
We haven't got a whole lot. I was just thinking about that today that we should, because when Heather is now in charge of the greenhouse down there, we were talking because they mainly only use horticulture oils up there for their sprays.
Okay.
And there's a product called Stick Coat that I trialed. It's basically an adjuvant, but
Okay.
it does work very well on thrip and aphids by itself.
Okay.
So I just ordered 2 bottles of that for them to try up there because there's no REI or anything. So it's something that the customers, don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
And I also was thinking maybe they should start putting out beneficials up there because they could be putting them out while people are there and show them what it actually does because it's not harmful to anybody.
Right.
And that's one great thing because we have a couple of young ladies now, that are just got married and they want to have kids. And now it's a lot safer what we use now.
Mm.
And when I started, it was like there was a couple of them I didn't even want to spray
Yeah.
because they were not good chemicals. But it took a while to get all that cleaned up, and then with the stuff from Florida, you also run into the risk of you don't know what they've sprayed, and they don't use beneficials down there, so
Mm.
some of that stuff that they spray can last up to 4 to 6 months on the plant, and so you have to kinda take a chance, and hope that it's not too long of lingering because 'cause you're putting out bugs, and you don't know if they're working or not really,
Yeah.
so.
Well, it's interesting too, in conversations I've had with, growers who have gone down the road of biological controls pretty significantly. One of the things they talk about in addition to, the in the greenhouse benefits that you can see is also, as you're recruiting new people to the team, they talk about the fact that a lot of their younger team members appreciate that focus on, clean pest control strategies. And I know that there's different routes you have to take sometimes, but that's been, working to their advantage at times to be able to tell, new team members, hey, we try and be as environmentally responsible as we can when it comes to, dealing with challenges like this.
Well, I know my new assistant grower I have now, he likes that because he would rather put out the bugs because you don't have to get all suited up than, put on a spray suit for an hour,
Yeah.
and in the summers, when it's 80 degrees, once it gets above 85, we won't, you know, spray because it doesn't do any good anyway. It evaporates right away. So
Right.
when we see the temperatures are going to start spiking, we'll up the bugs we're putting out because that's our way to cover ourselves, so we don't get big outbreaks.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but yeah, it also helps too is like I think I said this when I sent in some interview questions that you sent me, that we have a program through college that we hire 2 students every year,
Mhm.
and then we can kinda see if they think, if we think they'd be a good fit, or if then they can figure out if they wanna put up with us too,
Huh.
so. And we just like my assistant grower now, he was there 2 years ago, and when he graduated, we hired him.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
so
Okay.
the last 2 out of the last 3 we have hired from that program that we started, a while back, so.
Good. Good. And I like that approach too, because it brings them in and it gives them a chance to, you know, A, they can decide if the role's right for them, and B, you can decide if they're going to be the best fit for working at your company.
Yeah, it's a win-win for both sides, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I am curious outside of, crop protection and IPM programs, when it comes to something like, new varieties or new technology, how do you keep up with, some of the latest information in those areas and where you could potentially take the most advantage of something like that?
Well, like all the feed additives that I've switched to, I get f I had recommended one Andy Peterson, he's was asked me to do trials on a bunch of stuff. He actually, Andrew up in Green Valley also, I think
Mm,
on this 2 years ago,
yeah.
he had he had him and I doing trials on these different additives, and the first one, I was kinda skeptical because he goes, "You can cut your fertilizer in half with this
Mm,
product." And so when I started trialing it, I just left my stuff where it was for a couple weeks, and then every, week I would drop it 25 parts per million. So I ended up going from 250 parts per million and 300 parts per million down to 150 to 200.
okay.
So it basically cut it in half, and then I was able to take what I had saved on fertilizer to add these other additives that are better for the plants and make them stronger and help them resist pests a little bit more, and
Mm,
it's worked out really well.
good. Good. That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, there's a lot of good vendors. Like, I'm sure I know Andy said he was one of the people that, put in a nomination for me
Mm,
because I worked a lot with him, like I said, on trials for him.
okay.
And some of the BFG people I know did too, so that I've worked with. So
Okay.
I get a lot of good advice from them, and we always have, people from chemical companies coming in, and they've helped immensely with new products and stuff I'll trial,
Okay.
and it just helps. I mean, having all these different resources,
Yeah.
and like Grower Talk and all the Zoom meetings that you can get on through Grower Talk and these other magazines. It's like I always have my earbuds in the afternoons, basically watering and walking around, listening to that kind of stuff, because I just like to learn new things and to try to keep up with where the industry's going.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate your point too about, sitting there listening with the earbuds on as you're doing other things. That's we've looked at how all the different ways are that growers in this industry get information. And like when I first started, it was literally you wrote for the for your next print magazine. You got it all ready to go. You got it out the door, and you just started writing for the next issue. Now, we see that there's so many different ways people get information now. Whether it's the magazine's still obviously relevant, but the website and our e-newsletters and podcasts and videos and webinars and all that. There's so many different ways to get information and to do it at convenient times too. So,
Right.
you know,
And like Plant Peddler, I don't know if you know
yeah,
them at all. They're in Cresco. They've just had they have a variety day every spring
yeah,
or summer here. It was just a couple weeks ago. And I went down there, and they have all the different new varieties side by side, so you can compare them and look at them by all the different breeders and stuff. And
mhm,
they also have one in the winter for poinsettias,
yeah,
and I go to that every year too because I'm always looking for new varieties because I paint 4 or 5,000 poinsettias for Christmas every year too. So,
okay, okay. We actually had somebody from our team out at the Variety Day earlier this month.
oh, did you?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. They put on a really good thing, and they surprised me with a plaque down there too.
nice. Well, that's very nice.
'Cause
That's
we
good to
buy
know.
quite a few plugs from there. All our poinsettia plugs come from there.
Okay,
We used to do all our own cuttings, and for years, Mike was trying to get me to let them grow them, and finally I said, "No, let's do it." I talked to Eric, who was the boss, and he said, "Let's do it," because the plastic house gets the first group would do really well, but the second and third groups weren't. It was so hot, it was really hard to get them to root, and we'd have loss, and
Okay.
so it worked out really well because now I that space is always full. I don't know how I was ever able to rotate stuff enough to even do that now.
Nice.
So, but yeah, they're been very good to work for,
Good, good. That's
working
great.
with this stuff. They're a very good partner to us.
Good, good. I want to transition a little bit and talk about the team there at Bachman's and how you work with them. And that's both, the leadership team and then your team of growers, that you're out in the greenhouse with. So starting with, the Bachman family, as you're working with them in terms of, making decisions on, new innovations to look at or new projects to pursue, how do you work with that management team to make the best decisions on putting out a high quality crop and where to the directions that you wanna go?
Well, I can't say that I have a lot of pull doing that, but I can make suggestions. I mean, Susie, like yesterday, was, she's very good about listening.
Mm,
Dale, who was who was the and CEO before that. Susie's actually the first female CEO of Bachman's.
okay.
She's the fifth generation of Bachman's now. So,
Mhm.
but we also had one of the interns this summer we had was, um, his mom works for Bachman's too. So he'll be the sixth generation.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So,
Alright.
yeah, so that's, right now, I asked Susie yesterday, I said, "Do we have anything in the works, for new things coming up right now?" And she said, "Well, nothing we can share right now. We're always looking at things, but that's nothing concrete that, we can share right now."
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So, but they do listen. I mean, Susie comes and she was looking for me yesterday, so I had a good talk with her. So,
Good. Very nice, very
yeah,
nice.
it's nice to have, the Bachmans have been so good to us. So, there was one Christmas, they always have a Christmas open house for the employees,
Okay.
and I was sick, so I couldn't bring my grandsons to see Santa, and
Mm,
she found that out, and the next time she was at Bachman's, she goes, "I see you weren't able to come," and she goes, "My" what was it? I think it's her godfather was in town, and he had a hurricane at his place down in Florida, so he played Santa down there.
mm.
Well, she brought him into the greenhouse one day for me so the boys could see Santa.
Nice.
And I was totally shocked.
Huh.
I mean, I never expected that, but that's just the kind of family they are.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love that story.
Yeah.
That's
So it was very nice.
good, good. What about the growing team who works with you then? How do you kinda, work with them to develop them in their own career paths in this industry?
Well, I share as much information as I have with them. I mean, because I'm probably in a year or so gonna probably decide to back off and take a leave, retire, I guess you would call it. So
Sure.
it's gonna be hard on me because all I've ever done is worked, but
Okay.
I just my wife and I wanna go travel and go to federal, national parks and stuff, and
Yeah.
we when she was that's another story I can add to this too. It's like, she's a court reporter, so
Okay.
she wanted to be a federal court reporter, and the only job that was opening was in Washington, DC.
Uh,
So we spent 5.5 years going back and forth I stayed here and she stayed out there. So,
okay.
but we made it work. I mean, then COVID hit the first year she was out there, and we had the apartment and everything. And we thought, well, she goes, "I'll be back in a couple weeks." Well, it just kept going on and on and on. And so she
Yeah.
was basically home for 18 months working here in Minnesota instead of being out in her apartment. But we didn't want to let her apartment go. So
Yeah.
we had no idea when they would call her back. So,
Yeah. It has she gone back to having to be there in person more or
um, actually, now she is back in here.
okay.
We got a job in Minneapolis or in St. Paul at the federal courthouse.
Okay.
So, but my claim to fame is her first judge when I took her out there was Ketanji Jackson, who's now a Supreme Court judge.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So she actually invited us out there a couple years ago for her Christmas party at the Supreme Court. So that was
Oh,
kind of
wow.
cool.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah. So she's a very nice lady. When she first met Nancy, she's like, I haven't had a court reporter for a year. Can I just give you a hug? So just the sweetest lady in the world.
Oh, that's great.
So,
That's great. Oh, wow. Well, and I'd be remiss, not to sidetrack from the conversation, but seeing some of the news from this morning, our thoughts and prayers are with everybody in that area, and
oh, I
you know,
can't believe that happened.
yeah,
First
yeah,
day of school, too, or
yeah,
basically week of school.
yeah. That's awful. That's awful.
I kind of got off course there. So going back to the team,
Okay,
we have 6 growers or between growers and assistant growers.
sure,
Now every Monday we have a meeting after break and stuff and talk about what's going to happen during the week. And Louis, our supervisor, usually leads that. And then we talk all the time together. And when I was out watering the other day, Robin came out. She used to be my assistant grower, but when the one grower left, she took over her house.
okay,
And she goes, instead of me going and looking this up, can you just tell me what the rates are for Marengo and Reward? Because she knows that I'm a nerd with reading labels. I don't know if you remember when I got the award that I read labels at 2:30 in the morning sometimes. So, which is kind of stupid, but
I
I
mean,
mean,
if it keeps
anyways,
you educated, there's nothing wrong with that.
no, like I said, I like to learn things and I like to read the labels completely just so I can gauge them. And if there's one that I have any questions about, I will trial it before I put it on a whole crop.
Okay,
Because just, I've always had the fear of burning the crop. And so far, knock on wood, I haven't. So it must be working whatever I'm doing.
nice, nice. Okay,
But yeah, we all work together. I mean, if one of us is like, when we have to work weekends, we only have 4 people there, and sometimes we only have two. So we'll all go to different greenhouses and help out with the watering and stuff like that. And
right,
for spring planting, we usually have somewhat of a plan where everything is going. But last year they upped all the tubs and hanging baskets, the big ones that go in the house that I usually am in most of the time. Where
sure,
I didn't have room for a lot of stuff, so I shuttled stuff between other greenhouses with them, and we all worked it out, and we made it all fit, but
nice,
sometimes it can be, you know, challenging, but it always seems to work out.
good, good.
Yeah, like I said, we have a good group, and the whole greenhouse is a good group. I mean, we work together with the shippers. If we get done with our watering, we go help them ship, during the busy times. And
Mhm.
the maintenance team is fabulous. If I need anything, I just ask them and they're right on it for me. And our seasonals, we've been having the same ladies and gentlemen's come back for the last probably 5 or 6 years. So it makes it so easy that we don't have to
Sure,
return every year. And to show my appreciation for all the help they give me, I brought in lunch for them one day
nice.
because they're just such a nice group to work with.
Yeah, I mean, and you hear that so often now, just, the challenge in not just finding, good people to work on your team, but retaining them. And it sounds like you guys are on a nice path to, making sure that once you have somebody good in place that, do everything you can to, keep them happy and, keep, improving what they're doing in the greenhouse at the same time, I think.
Yeah, because we have two of the ladies finally got their visa papers
Okay.
after 10 years of trying to get them.
Nice.
So they're almost there, and we're kind of pushing that hopefully we can hire them full time because
Okay.
they're just so good. They know
Good.
everything and they just work their butts off. So,
Nice.
but yeah, it's nice to have everybody works together when we have crunch time. And so,
Right. Awesome.
yeah, we have a good group.
Good. So I know, so far we've talked a lot about you kind of, how you got into this and then some of the current things happening there. I want to look into the future a little bit and kind of talk about, what excites you about, both what's taking place at Bachman's and where the company's going, and then also maybe the industry as a whole. What excites you the most about the future of this floriculture industry?
I just think it's gonna keep growing because I thought when COVID hit that we wouldn't be selling anything, and that was probably some of our best sales
Mm,
because people couldn't go anywhere, so they just stayed home and made their yards look nice.
yeah.
And it's like I just love working in. I come home after working 10 hours and I'll go out in my yard and work for an hour just because I like being outside and working. And I think with all the new products that are coming out and all the new varieties and stuff, they're making it a lot easier for homeowners, that they don't have to put so much effort into growing things
Yeah.
because they're breeding stuff that you don't have to spray and all this other stuff. It's more hardy and it's just, I think it's going in the right direction.
Nice, nice. Well, and the timing of this, conversation and the award is works out nicely too because I know Bachman's is celebrating its own big anniversary this year. So, and I know we'll dedicate some space in the article to kind of reference that as well. It's a company that's had a long, successful standing in this industry, with a lot more, I'm sure, to come, in the near future here.
Yeah, and Plant Peddler also is celebrating their like
Yeah.
30th this year. So there's a lot of celebrations this year.
Yeah, yeah, that's one thing I like about this industry. It's so many companies that have been around for a while and, have gone through everybody goes through challenges, but you come out on the other side, stronger for what you've learned, I think. So, and, just, the experience with COVID is just one example of that, I think. So,
Yeah, and I also feel that in the Twin Cities area, it's like the greenhouses aren't competing against each other because we talk to other, growers and stuff and work,
mm,
it seems like it's not a competition,
yeah.
which in our industry it shouldn't be because it's a smaller industry basically, and it's hard to attract good people in the industry anymore.
Mm,
Because I know in our Rose Society used to give a scholarship to Century College every year because they had a horticultural program and then they just quit it.
okay.
And Dakota County doesn't have theirs anymore. I think River Falls is in Wisconsin is the closest one to the Twin Cities area that actually has one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
All right. Just a last couple of questions for you. Your number one, when you're not in the greenhouse working day to day, what do you like to do for fun?
I love spending time with my grandsons.
Okay. Okay.
They're my pride and joy. They're just full of energy. They're fun to be with. We actually took them on the cruise with us
Huh,
to celebrate our 38th wedding anniversary. So
nice.
they thought the boat was pretty cool, and I involved in the Rose Societies. I'm the North Central District Director. I'm the president of the Minnesota Rose Society and a member of the Twin Cities Rose Club and
Okay.
Lake Superior Rose Society and Potomac Rose Society. Because I, at one point, when Nancy was out in DC, that I might be out there to go to some meetings of theirs, but now I just do their Zoom meetings.
Okay.
So yeah, work in my yard with my roses. That's one of the questions you had favorite plants. So I think by now you probably figured out that roses is probably it.
Now let's hear from Fred Wacker at Hampshire Farms. Greenhouse grower content specialist Marissa Reyes talked to Wacker as well as other team members at Hampshire Farm. In this conversation, Wacker talks about why Hampshire Farms' focus on being a team-first company helps its employees become familiar names in the industry.
With so many employees and, substantial crew leaders, how do you keep them feeling empowered and supported throughout your business?
By a lot of open communication, Marissa. So, starting with the management team, we meet weekly no matter what and talk about the pace of business, what was accomplished in the previous week and what we're intending to do. And it's a 45-minute to an hour meeting where we just go around the horn and every single person talks about, what metrics they're following and what's going well for them or if they need any help. And then in the individual departments, the same thing happens. I mean, the merchandisers meet weekly on a play call where the leadership goes over what product is coming, what Home Depot's expecting, what the sell-through is, how we're doing against our plan, all of those type of things. And then the production teams meet weekly as well. And Matt will tell you tomorrow, but Bob can tell you about the merchandising and field meetings that we have weekly. And Matt can tell you about the production meetings he has. And he has the crew leaders and the team captains in the room, and they look at performance metrics every single week. And it's an open book dialogue, and the whole, cultural goal that we're trying to achieve at Hampshire Farms is to have everybody know what's going on and to have participation and enjoyment in the fact that you're part of the program and not just a worker bee that's just doing what you're told. That's not the culture we want.
That's so interesting, and it feels almost unheard of from my side. I mean, just in my experience in the industry, I don't think we've ever had, a sit down meeting where we're talking about what's going on, this week or how everybody's performing. So it's really nice to see different industry and like businesses in the industry caring about the people who work for them, because really it's the people that make it go round. You can't do anything or reach goals without the people who work for you.
100% right, Marissa. And you think about it, financial reporting is all the other assets and liabilities of the business, but people are not on the balance sheet of the company. And yet they're the most important asset that we have. And my belief has always been, I had a friend who was a wonderful professor at Kellogg Graduate School who wrote a book about servant leadership. And I always subscribed from a, young work age to his philosophy, which is that, you should think of a company's organization chart is upside down, where the owners are at the bottom and management is the next couple of bricks in the upside down pyramid, and then you work up, and then your people that are on the front line. In the case of Hampshire Farms, people who are doing the merchandising in the stores, driving the trucks to deliver the product, planting the product, tending the product. Those are the people that are at the top of the food chain, and management and ownership's job is really to make sure that they have everything that they need by way of resources and open book information so that they can succeed in their job. I mean,
That's a really, really great way.
I always cringe when, you have organizations where people at the top are like, hey, everybody looks like ants from here, and I'm in the corporate office. That's just not, to me, that's not what drives a great business.
Yeah, like happy employees make a happy workplace and a more productive one at that, We're all people and we all have lives, and it's good to feel appreciated and recognized. And do you guys ever do any sort of, awards or recognition, anything as simple as employee of the month or?
We do. We recognize outstanding achievement by the merchandisers at off-campus events, and then we also recognize our greenhouse team as well. We definitely do. We have a wonderful company picnic every fall. We have a monthly lunch that the company provides for the greenhouse staff to just celebrate the milestone of the month. And then we have a great holiday party at the end of the year where the field team comes to the greenhouse, and the greenhouse associates decorate the place. It looks like Christmas, and we have awards and raffles and games that people play and all, and it's just really just fun. We try to have fun,
bonding, and it makes you feel part of the family, right?
And one thing that the photographer will see when she comes out, because I want to show it to her, when we did the last expansion at the greenhouse, I had the photographer come and take a picture of the crew leaders and team captains with the shovels in the ground. When you have a groundbreaking, usually you see people in ties and hard hats, right?
Yeah.
And it's the contractor and the owner and all that. We didn't do that. I said, I want the people who work in this greenhouse every day in the cold, in the heat. They're the one. This is an expansion of their facility. And they were like, really? And like, yeah. And we have that picture in the lunchroom posted on the wall, and people are proud of it.
That's fantastic. I love that you took that approach, and that to me makes the most sense.
Yeah.
So outside of all these incredible things that you guys are doing just for your employees, what have you learned about team building over the years that you think other growers might benefit from?
Well, I think when it comes to the management team, one of the most important things to me that I think drives our success and has helped in my own career is to make the financial statements available to your management team. You got to be open book. And I think that's the best way for people to really understand where the dollars go in a business, where they come from, where they get spent, and really have a sense of how I, as an individual, our group as a department, and the company as a whole can work together to not only drive top line growth but also bottom line success as well. So we really do practice open book management, and we share general results with everybody in the company. But the management team knows every month what the financial statement looks like. We meet monthly on the financial statement. We talk through deviations up or down to plan and also to prior years, so that we can measure our forward growth and our performance against the budget. And it's really, you've got an opportunity there for people to really feel like owners of the business, which they do.
Yeah. And to make decisions and be part of,
Right.
what's really going on behind the scenes.
Right. And I know that not all companies operate that way. A lot of family held businesses are closely held in the truest sense of the word, and they just maybe the controller and the owners look at the financials. And I just think you've got to break that barrier down and have people understand where the business makes money.
So you mentioned a new expansion at the company. How do you decide when it's the right time to upgrade or to bring in new equipment?
Right. So we've done we did an office expansion 3+ years ago that was way overdue, and that was driven by, we were always conservative in terms of support facilities, if you will, and the greenhouse was more important than the office. But when we had substandard let's say climate environment in the offices, and we had 4 desks in a room that was really designed for one person,
Sure.
we knew we needed to do an expansion, and ownership supported our recommendation to do it. And it just, you couldn't exactly justify it on a payback because it's an office, right? How do you measure that? However, we built an efficient open plan office, and it's already we're almost grown out of it, just because it provided opportunity to grow. We were able to hire people that we needed to continue to grow the business. We were able to just make a much more attractive environment for the professional staff, right? The sales and accounting and HR and production team. And so that was like a stair-step investment that we knew we needed to make, that is paying off in qualitative ways as well as quantitative ways.
Yeah.
A greenhouse expansion, which we're putting which we started planning 2 years ago. We pulled the trigger late last year, and it's actually being erected now. Is a 2.5 acre expansion. So we're increasing our climate controlled environment by about 10%. And we just, when we were getting the signal that our opportunity for market expansion was improving from our customer, we knew we needed to make the expansion. But we were conservative by saying, well, let's make sure we succeed in that market expansion, and ask more of our contract growers to fill the gap between what we're growing and what they grow, so that we can make the total meet the total market need. And then we proved out this year that was a good decision, conservative, but next year we'll be able to replace that bought-in product with grown product, which has a payback, which we can measure because we understand, what the margin is on the plants that we grow. And so there's definitely a payback in it. And we're conservative to start, but then we put the hammer down and get the greenhouse expansion going. And that's kind of how we do it on big ticket items like that. And then when you get to CapEx in the facility, Marissa, it's a combination. We look at kind of run rate CapEx, the things you need to do to replace things that are wearing out, and those items being, poly on the roofs,
Mhm.
Modine heating units, all computers, chance that
Fans.
they have
Yeah.
yeah, fans, all of that stuff. And then separate from that is productive labor saving improvements like
Yes.
improved potting lines, cedars, irrigation booms, those type of things, right?
Absolutely. And I know what it's like to work in, a greenhouse that doesn't have the best technology. Specifically when you said cedar, a little memory popped back into my head. And when I was working at W&E Radkeys, and I mentioned how I was the main cloner and propagator, and we grew 1.5 million plants a year, right? And it was mostly going to Steins. That was like the main customer that they had. It was like all over Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And our like broadcast cedar was a old man's shaver with a bunt pan, and it was glued together, and you would turn on the shaver and it would vibrate the pan, and that's how we would seed a bunch of plants. And I remember telling George all the time, we need to invest in something that's gonna save time and make more
Right.
sense. So that kind of brings me
And
to
yeah, so it's so great that you know that. I mean,
yeah.
it's because you can relate to what we're up against. And, there were times, 15 years ago where we weren't doing as well as we are now, and we had to squeeze on CapEx. And then, not all our heaters worked and not all our
Yes.
fans worked. And so we were making do. But as we fixed those most important things, we got on a system of replacing so much poly per year. We've got like
Mhm.
22 acres under roof. So that's a lot of plastic and a lot of cost. And you can't, our greenhouse contractor can't do it all in one year because it's too big. So we've got it spread out over 4 or 5 years, and you do this section then, and this section then, and this section then. And, we also got a product called Asset Essentials that we invested in a couple years ago, where we've got all of our fixed assets on a system, and it tells us when we bought it, when the last time it was serviced, when it needs to be serviced. If something needs to be serviced or is broken, somebody could take a picture with their camera, and then, you know, by the barcode on the machine, this is
Yeah.
what it is. This is what parts you need. And it's allowed us to be more efficient and more proactive versus waiting for stuff to break.
Right.
So
Exactly. That's really nice that you actually keep track of everything, and then you have a good idea, and it helps you plan for the future too. Like, if you have to
exactly,
replace a bunch of stuff next year,
exactly.
you can put that in budget for that. So you're not,
And
running
that's
around last minute.
exactly what we're going to be doing as we build our budget for 2026. I mean, we won't have as much total capex as we had this year because the greenhouse expansion will be done and paid for. But we've got the run rate stuff, and we want to know what that is, in the late in the third, early in the fourth quarter, so we can plan for it and be
Hmm.
ready to just hit the ground running next year. And that's what forward planning helps you do.
So what do you do then when to balance tech innovation and then keeping your team engaged in the process? Like if you're going to bring in, a new planting line or new seeders or stuff like that, how do you keep your employees engaged in that? Or is it
Well,
more like a team decision?
it's a team decision. I want you to ask Matt that question tomorrow because I'm sure he's going to give you a better answer than I will, but I'll
Sure.
give him all the credit in the world because when we're looking at new technology improvements, he takes people from the greenhouse with him on tours of other greenhouses that have gone through this or that have already, he's talking to the equipment manufacturers, and they give us a couple references, and then he'll go with them and they'll look, and then they'll decide what they think is best for us. So it is a team decision, which is great.
Yeah, that is great. And it's really nice too that you can go somewhere and talk to someone who's been through something and then see how it's improved, their business.
Right.
Then it makes more sense
Right.
to you.
Right.
That's
And there, of
great.
course, at Cultivate, you can definitely get a lot of info from, the equipment that's there. And
Oh, I
it,
know. It was actually my first year at Cultivate ever. So it was very overwhelming, but in a good way. It was a lot of people and you walk on the trade show floor and it's just like, wow, oh my gosh.
it's amazing. It's amazing. And it gets, I mean, my impression was that this year there were more equipment manufacturers than ever. I mean, you had a lot of choices for planting equipment, seeding equipment, irrigation equipment, computer controls. There was more than ever, which is great.
And it's really nice to see all these different innovations and technologies that companies are putting out there and to have a place to showcase it. I mean, we're better than Cultivate, where all of us are, in horticulture. So how do you evaluate ROI when deciding on new infrastructure or technology upgrades?
Again, ask Matt tomorrow, but I
Sure.
would say
That works for me.
in general, we look at, okay, what if you have to replace so many Modine heaters per year because they're spent,
Yeah.
you just got to do that, right? That has a negative payback if you don't do it. All right.
Mhm.
But on other things, we put them all on the table and decide where the biggest pain point is, where we can save the most labor or make it easier for our people in the greenhouse to do their jobs better. And that's how we do it. I mean, it's not too scientific, but it's scientific enough where we know what, we know what the investment's going to cost, and we've got a pretty good idea of how many people it will save. And by the way, saving people, that has allowed us to keep our employment fairly steady or increasing slightly with our business growing faster because we've been able to automate. And as you well know, labor is not easy to come by in this industry right now. So
Yeah.
we do look at things that will help people do their job better, faster, and with less backbreaking labor.
Thanks for joining us. You can learn more at greenhousegrower.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and please leave us a rating as it helps other podcast listeners find the show.